It's been a big few months for Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. She has to deal with arguably her nation's biggest geopolitical and diplomatic crisis, perhaps ever, Donald Trump's threats to seize Greenland. And she has managed to ward off those threats for now. Today, Frederiksen called early parliamentary elections for March 24th, seeking to capitalize on a boost in support for her defiant stance against U.S. pressure. Now, just as a reminder, Greenland is a mineral-rich Danish territory in the Arctic between Canada and Northern Europe. Donald Trump has argued that having it is vital for U.S. and NATO security against Russia and China. Last month, Frederiksen warned that an American takeover of Greenland would amount to the end of NATO. Here's some of what she had to say earlier when she announced the early election.
This will be an important election. Yes, it will also be a decisive election. Because in the next 4 years, we as Danes and we as Europeans will really have to stand on our own 2 feet. We must define our relationship with the United States. We must rearm ourselves to ensure peace on our continent. We must keep Europe together. And as everyone knows, the conflict over Greenland, for example, is not over yet. The government will therefore also have to deal with the international situation during an election campaign.
And journalist Jakob Illeborg joins us now from Copenhagen. You know, Jakob, it seems surprising that a leader on the brink of possibly losing territory not so long ago would feel secure enough to politically call an early election. Walk us through why the Danish Prime Minister is doing this.
It's clearly a tactical move. It all has to do with the recent Greenland crisis. Before the Greenland crisis, the Danish government was in crisis on its own, so was the Prime Minister. But the ratings have shot up dramatically after its handling of the Greenland crisis in terms of the US, of course. And even though it's 8 months before she has to have this election, she's clearly felt that now was the time to make hay, if you will. This was the time when she could win. And the opinion polls seem to suggest that she may be right. So this is all about tactics. It's about using the win she got, or the government got, from the standoff with the US.
It's being called, in fact, I understand, a Greenland bounce. And, you know, if we look at how she has indeed positioned, I mean, she has taken what's been described as this firm and defiant stance against Donald Trump, someone that, you know, talks and posts about Greenland a lot. Tell us a little bit more about, you know, how big a bounce this has been, and in particular, those interactions with the U.S. president.
Dramatic bounce, quite outstanding, but also this was in Danish terms, outstanding, crazy crisis, if you will, so unexpected, to be under so much pressure from what we consider our closest ally, the United States, and the United States president. So, yes, it is a Greenland bounce, but curiously, it was actually the foreign minister and not Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen who was sent to Washington to deal with it, because Donald Trump doesn't like Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen very much. So she was kept in the background. But together, the tandem has worked quite well, and it shows in the opinion polls. Right now, it looks like they just might pull it off and might get another term here in Denmark.
And here's where things stand right now, if we look at the American side at least. Donald Trump seems to have backed down for now on his threats to seize Greenland. But, you know, what is the view there in Denmark and maybe also in Greenland as well? Do people really think that this is over?
No, is the short answer. I think everybody is expecting that anything could happen from the American side. Only a few days ago, there was a hospital ship that wanted to anchor in Greenland, and the Greenlandic government politely said, "We don't need your hospital ship here." I think there's an assumption that something will happen sooner or later. But right now, it's all about, as I said before, making hay for the current government, while, if you will, we wait for the next move from the Americans. But certainly, it has been extraordinary times. We've never had anything like it in Denmark before over the last year. And I'm sure it will reflect in the election result. Basically, the current government is going to the general election saying, we showed that we can stand up against American might, pick us once more, and we will show you the solidity that we have built this government on.
Frederiksen today, she said that Denmark must continue to rearm. And I mean, to put this into the broader context, I mean, this is something that, in fact, predates the Greenland debacle. What do Danes think about this, generally speaking? And especially, what do they think, since Greenland as well?
I think that the feeling is that the government really did well. I mean, we are a small country. We're up against the might of the United States. And the feeling is that even if there were things they were not very happy about with the Prime Minister and the current coalition government before, this kind of supersedes that. So in a sense, this was the biggest security crisis we've had since the Second World War. And the feeling is that so far, the government has done really well. And therefore, the feeling is that they just might, that the voters just might forgive the sitting government its other mistakes simply because the feeling is that they handled Greenland, they handled President Trump pretty well.
This election is, of course, not just about Greenland. What else is on the minds of voters there?
Well, the interesting thing right now is that the Prime Minister seems to be suggesting, or she is suggesting, that she will try and get a wealth tax where you will tax the richest 1% of the Danish population. Now, this is in a sense controversial, but what she is saying is that Denmark was built on an egalitarian system, and that this is fair and right because Denmark is strong and Denmark should remain strong, and the best way of remaining strong is to keep this egalitarian system that the modern Danish society is built on. But clearly this will challenge the more, if you will, right-wing view, libertarian view that we are paying a lot of tax in Denmark, and we are already paying enough as it is.
Journalist Jakob Illeborg in Copenhagen, thank you so much.